In Singapore, the generation-long ruling PAP, People's Action Party, suffering its biggest electoral setback in the nation's young history. In the weekend general election, the Workers' Party won 6 parliamentary seats, the most ever for an opposition party. Now, okay, when you do the math, it still leaves the PAP with 81, so still overwhelming majority. The PAP share of the popular vote, though, slumped from 67% in the last poll to just a notch over 60% this time. There are 3 non-constituency seats that will be assigned to losing candidates with the biggest number of votes, likely to go to the opposition as well. Tony Nash is Global Director, Custom Research from the EIU and an economic and business research group under The Economist, and joins us from the SGX today. Tony, morning to you. Quite a, I don't know, a watershed, landmark weekend. Your own views on what you witnessed.
It really was. I think what happened during the campaign was Singaporeans were really led by their hearts, and they were really caught up in a wave of opposition enthusiasm. When they got to the ballot box, they really thought through kind of a risk-averse, rational approach to voting, and the PAP came back into power. I think, obviously, there was no doubt that they wouldn't have come back into power, but I think the takeover of some SMCs and GRCs was not as large as many had thought, maybe on Friday even.
Right. What is the most, okay, following the election, okay, with the swearing in of the new parliament or whatever the process is in Singapore, what's going to be the most palpable change that manifests itself? What do you think it's going to be? Will there be an attitudinal change on the part of the PAP?
I actually think there will be. You know, what happened in the election is the PAP really, and it was embodied by the Prime Minister's kind of apology about some of the attitude over the past several months and some of the issues that had come up. And with that speech came a lot of reconsideration from many people here who had been really leaning hard toward the opposition. And so that and a few other moves on the ground really led to, I think, the PAP recapturing a number of votes.
Are we going to see more spirited conversations in Parliament, you know, compared to perhaps the more congenial atmosphere of the past?
I think you might, but I think the more interesting view will be from the voters themselves. You know, social media did actually play a very important role here, and the role of social media and weblogs here really imposed a need from the mainstream media here, the government radio stations and television and newspapers, to start covering the opposition parties more deeply. What's interesting about the approach here is they let the candidates speak, and they reprint the candidates' speeches or big snippets from the speeches. So it's not 10 seconds of a speech and 5 minutes of political commentary. It really is a lot of letting both the opposition and the PAP to speak for themselves. So that'll lead to some potentially direct discussion from the constituents themselves.
Tony, was there any evidence in this weekend's vote that perhaps the people have looked beyond the past? You know, in the past, the ruling party has in some ways intimated, you know, to constituents that, you know, they would be behind or maybe lower on the food chain in terms of like housing estate upgrades and that sort of thing if they lost control of particular districts. Or have they moved beyond the creature comfort arguments, and you know, are they thinking perhaps bigger with you know, on the back of this vote?
Potentially. You know, I think one of the separations that was made during the election was there is now a view that the bureaucratic institutions within the government are the bureaucratic institutions with the government, and they're increasingly viewed as being separated from a particular party. I don't think that's a massively broad view yet, but I think that's a growing view among Singaporeans. There was a comment made during the election that Singaporeans who vote for opposition will have to repent over the next 5 years. And it really caused a pushback from a number of Singaporeans, really repelled by that. But through that, many people have really had to think about the institutional nature of government here. The institutions here are very, very strong. The government here is very, very strong, and people have come to rely on it in a big way. So I don't think they'll bend too much depending on the party and the constituency that's in power.
Okay, well, Tony, the color of this weekend's election, we'll keep this, we'll obviously stay on top of this situation and keep dibs on it for some time. Tony Nash from the EIU in Singapore. Coming up in hour 2 of CF, China's wealth and appetite for luxury growing, but consumers are looking overseas for bargains. We'll find out whether this means the domestic market may be stunted. Plus, commodities still struggling to shake off the sell-off last week. Is it over?